Braising is a cooking method combining both dry and moist heat. In this process, the meat is first seared to brown the exterior and enhance the flavor. It is then slowly simmered in liquid to break down the connective tissues or make it tender. A properly braised cut should have a rich, brown appearance outside and be tender yet firm in texture inside with plenty of savory juices. Braising can be done on top of the stove or in the oven. It is the best method for preparing less tender cuts of meat, such as beef, and of these, the less tender cuts taken from the larger, harder working muscles of the animal, such as shank, shoulder, and brisket. Braising benefits these cuts by making them more tender and by lending them extra flavor from the sauce, which results from the process. Braising is also suitable for lamb, poultry, game, and offal, which includes sweetbreads, tongue, heart, etc. Larger sized pieces of meat, as well as individual portions of meat, can be braised successfully. Smaller portion-sized cuts, such as Swiss steak, stew meats, lamb, and veal shanks, are suitable as well. Sufficient fat outside and marbleization throughout the meat provide the necessary searing and basting mediums. First, a pot is selected into which the meat will fit properly, not crowded, not too spacious. This will assure proper moisture retention and reduce shrinkage. Braziers, rondeaus, or actually any deep pot with a tightly fitting domed lid is suitable. Our mise en place for braising consists of beef knuckle, a brazier or rondeau, oil, fatback and larding needle, a mixture of salt and pepper, aromatics for the sachet d'épices, a mirepoix of carrots, celery, and onion, tomato product, brown stock, cheesecloth for the sachet d'épices and for straining, cornstarch or arrowroot. With cuts such as beef knuckle or bottom round, which are deficient in fat or marbleization, larding may be necessary to prevent the meat from drying out during the braising process. A cut such as beef brisket, sufficient in fat, does not require larding. Bear in mind, larding is an option in the braising process. The meat is dried thoroughly to aid in caramelization and to prevent the spitting and splattering which results from excess surface moisture. Next, the meat is seasoned. Salt and pepper are usually all that's necessary. By rubbing the seasonings in, the meat is penetrated, enhancing the flavor throughout the cut. Dredging is discouraged for larger cuts. Portion-sized cuts may be dredged to enhance color. The meat is now placed fat side down into the hot oil. The temperature should be high enough to brown but not burn. Important factors in the searing process are control of the amount of fat and temperature control. All sides should be seared evenly and turned with a fork by the fatty parts so that no juices are lost. Notice that the meat has caramelized to a rich brown and that the fond in the bottom of the pot is not burned. Now a mirepoix of carrots and onions is added to the fat to caramelize. The amount is dependent upon the amount of meat braised. 1 ounce of mirepoix to 1 pound of meat. Celery is added a little later as it has a higher water content and cuts down on caramelization. Tomato product is introduced, providing flavor and color. A small amount of stock is added to deglaze the fond found in the bottom of the pot. Wine, beer, or other flavorful liquids may be substituted for stock in specific applications, such as when a marinade is used in making sauerbraten, or to remove the gamey taste from a meat like wild venison. Now, a greater amount of liquid is added. Depending upon the quantity of portions the cut will yield, about 3 to 5 ounces per portion. Here, brown stock is used. The meat is returned to the pot and brought to a simmer. In simmering, the boil should be no more than a lazy bubble to maintain slow cooking. Boiling the meat will result in shrinkage and drying, and the sauce will be cloudy. The cooking medium should almost engulf the meat, coming to about 2 inches below the top of it. A bouquet garni or sachet, in this case made up of crushed peppercorns, cloves, thyme, bay leaf, and parsley stems is placed into the stock to add flavor. Once the lid is replaced, the meat may be left on top of the stove to simmer, or placed into a moderate oven. Oven temperatures are affected by natural variances particular to the individual unit, as well as by the size of the pot, so it is best to visually check the stock to see if the simmer occurs at the proper rate. Occasional turning prevents drying and assures even cooking. Larger cuts may be left to simmer for 2 to 2.5 hours, and smaller cuts an hour and a half to 2 hours. To check for doneness, a fork is inserted into the meat. If it goes in and comes out easily, the meat is done. The meat is removed from the sauce. It should then be covered and held aside on a warming shelf at a temperature of about 140 degrees to await service. To prevent it from drying out during this time, a small amount of stock is placed into the holding vessel and covered. The sauce is strained through cheesecloth to remove the mirepoix and bits of seasoning in the liquid. The sauce must now be allowed to settle or relax so that the fat may come to the surface and be removed, a process known as dégraisser. The sauce is returned to a proper-sized pot, brought to a simmer, and the additional fat and impurities skimmed off until it is clear. This process is known as dépouillage. For thickening, a slurry of starch, such as arrowroot or cornstarch, and cold water is introduced. It should be kept in mind that a cornstarch mixture will thicken the sauce quicker than a roux. The consistency of the sauce may be ascertained by tasting it and adjusting to taste. Now is the time to slice and plate the meat. It should be sliced against the grain. The texture should be tender yet firm, and the juices clear and plentiful. Portion size should range from 3 to 4 ounces. No more than 2 ounces of sauce per portion is served over the meat. Meals that are both flavorful and cost-effective will be readily attainable if the basics of braising are adhered to. That the meat be of a suitable size and cut. Less tender cuts from the larger muscles of the animal, such as the shank or the shoulder, or portion-sized steaks. That the pot provide a proper fit for effective moisture retention, such as a brazier or rondeau, and the lid fit snugly to prevent shrinkage and drying. That the meat is dried, seasoned, and seared thoroughly and evenly in a small amount of oil. That there be adequate cooking medium and temperature for simmering, 3 to 5 ounces of stock per portion at a slow, lazy bubble. That the finished braise be fork tender with clear juices. These are the essentials of braising. Flavoring ingredients. Mirepoix, the most common flavoring ingredient, along with the option of other vegetables, herbs, spices, and fruits, among others. Thickening agents, such as a roux, modified starches, arrowroot is a good example, or potatoes, ginger snaps, breadcrumbs, blood, or other thickening agents. Optional components of braising may include finishing ingredients. Cream, sour cream, liaison are just some of the possible thickening agents. Garnish. Lardons or vegetables are often used. Larding leaner cuts of meat. Marination, leading to tenderizing, good flavor, and reducing any game flavors in the meat. And, although braising is most often done in the oven, it can be done on top of the stove as well. Remember, the basic sequence of braising is: dry the main product, season the product, sear the product evenly, then remove from heat, caramelize mirepoix, and add tomato product. Add liquid and aromatics. Return meat to heat and cover tightly. Simmer slowly until fork tender. Strain. Dégraisser sauce. Adjust consistency and taste if needed. Hold in small amount of stock, covered. Serve. It is important to remember the proper braising ratios. For every pound of the main product, we use a small amount of the searing medium, 6 to 10 ounces of cooking liquids, and 1 ounce of mirepoix. The ratios of remaining ingredients will depend on the specific dish. The common ingredients used for braising are beef, cuts such as chuck, shank, brisket, short ribs, rounds, flank, oxtail, heart, and tongue. Veal, we might use the shoulder, shank, breast, leg, sweetbreads, tongue, liver, or heart. Lamb, utilize the shoulder, shank, breast, and sweetbreads. Pork, cuts such as the shoulder, shank, or hocks, hams, and spare ribs. Common cooking liquids include stocks or water, which could include beer, wine, and marinades. There are three options for preparing the sauce for a braised item. They are: 1. After searing the main product, deglaze the pan and add a light consistency brown sauce. 2. After searing the main product, add flour to the fat used to sear, then add liquid. And 3. After cooking the main product, reduce the cooking liquid and thicken. In order to hold the braised item properly, remember to hold large pieces in a small amount of stock to keep moist. Keep the item covered. Hold at temperature above 140 degrees, but not so high as to dry the meat out. There are some essential steps in the service of braised dishes, including: carve large items against the grain. A portion is 3 to 4 ounces cooked weight. Serve no more than a 2-ounce ladle of sauce per portion. The sauce is generally served over the meat. Finally, remember the quality standards of braising. The finished product must be tender but not stringy, juicy, not dry, and of course, flavorful. The finished sauce should be properly seasoned, balanced, with not too much acid or vegetable flavor, and a light consistency, not thick. Appropriately executed, the art of braising will render an otherwise tough cut of meat tender, flavorful, and profitable.